Before we jump into the episode today, I want to share something with you from my heart. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really can't tell you how much your support means to me. We've been doing the podcast now for almost 4 years. I can't even believe it. And I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you that listens, shares an episode with your friends, sends me a DM or a text message letting me know how an episode resonated with you or any aha moments. Seriously, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to create this podcast. It has been such a blessing in my life, and I love hearing the ways it's been able to provide value in yours as well. One thing you might not know is how much work it takes to be consistent with a podcast. In fact, did you know that the majority of podcasts don't make it past episode number 10? And we are well beyond that. And it's just a lot thinking of the episodes, recording them, editing them, managing the guests, making sure that everything runs smoothly and gets uploaded consistently and regularly. And so that's why I have created an amazing opportunity for you to support the podcast monetarily. And in exchange for that, you will get exclusive premium subscriber content. So for as little as $3 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of the podcast. And every month I will upload new voice-guided workouts and breathwork meditation audio for you. So that way you can work out with me, coaching you in your ears. You can also take a moment to reduce your stress and relax and come down and ground down with one of my breathwork audios. So if that is on your heart to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month to become a premium podcast subscriber, I can't tell you how much that means to me and the growth of this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're interested, click the link in the description, become a premium podcast subscriber, new content every month, and while supplies last, I'll send you an exclusive podcast coffee mug so you can have your self-love and sweat coffee every morning. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, break down barriers, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, London Souza. Hey, have you grabbed your free Self-Love and Sweat monthly calendar yet? This calendar is so amazing. It comes right in your inbox every single month to help you have a little nugget of wisdom, a sweaty workout, a mindset activity, just a little something to help keep you focused and motivated and keep that momentum towards your goals. So every day when you get this calendar, you'll see a link that you can click that will lead to a podcast episode or a workout or something that will be very powerful and quick to read. And then you'll also see on the top left corner of every single day, there's a little checkbox in the calendar. And what that is that's for your one thing. You can choose one thing every month, or it can be the same, something that you want to implement, and make this something that you can easily implement, like daily meditation or getting a certain amount of steps or water, for example, and staying hydrated, and even taking your supplements. This can be something if you want to get more regular doing a particular habit and routine, you can choose what that checkbox means. So if you want your Self-Love and Sweat free monthly calendar delivered right to your inbox every month on the first of the month, go to lifelikelondon.com/calendar, fill out the form really quickly, and you will have your calendar in your inbox within a few short minutes. That's lifelikelondon, lifelikelondon.com/calendar. Go get yours for free and enjoy this episode. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have an amazing guest and such a powerful topic. One that really, gives me all the feels, gives me the goosebumps, makes my heart beat a little bit faster. And so I'm so excited that we get a chance to talk about this today on the podcast. Today we have a special guest, Megan Gallagher, and she is she pretty much is working on mental health amongst young adults and bringing classes that she wishes were taught when she was in school. And she's a self-published author and really has done a lot in this space. And so I'm just so excited to have Megan here. She has done 2 TEDx talks. She's a 4-time Amazon bestseller. She's a TV host and mental health advocate. She's been a motivational speaker for 9 years and is just so passionate about changing the school system and having classes on mental health, meditation, mindfulness, and learning in school how to follow your happiness. So, Megan, I'm so excited for you to be here today. Thanks for your time and for reaching out.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, London, for having me on. I am so excited, just so grateful. I love that I came, just how we met and kind of our Instagram mutual following and friends. I think it's so wonderful. And I'm just so grateful. Anytime I get to talk about this topic, it lights my heart on fire. And I really just feel like it was the reason why I was put on this earth. Like I was put on this earth to change the public school system and to really be an advocate for mental health education, classes on mindfulness and journaling and how to follow your happiness, all these things that we all wish were taught in our high school. And, we get to 20, we graduate college and we're like 22 and we're like, I don't know who I am, what I want to do. And I really want to prepare young adults better for the real world. So
I love that. That really, it hits home for me because a lot of these tools that you're mentioning, meditation, journaling, mindfulness practices, a lot of these things I didn't even know existed until I was in my late 20s. And I'm not a mom, but I have a niece and she's 4. And that's really been on my heart lately, which is why when you reached out, I was like, oh man, this is perfect. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, I got these tools, let's say at the perfect time for me, but, too late, if you will. And I would love to be able to teach and guide her to use these tools way earlier in life, way before she even realizes that they're important. What was your catalyst to jump into this space? Do you have kids? Was it a specific moment in your life? Like what catapulted you to be like, I got to help in the public school system?
Yes. So for me, it was personal experience. I remember being maybe 15 years old at kind of like the beginning of my freshman year of high school, just in that place where, you're getting used to a whole new school, finding your locker. It's just a lot of stress, a lot of just changes. And for me, that's what triggered my anxiety. It was really just, the fear of change. And I really just was so nervous about leaving middle school, the transition, having some friends going to a different high school, all that stuff. And I vividly remember, reaching honestly rock bottom. Like it had been months. So the beginning of my freshman year, I started having panic attacks within the first 2 weeks of school, just the overwhelmed stress. And I was like, I don't feel normal or comfortable. And then truly, for maybe about 6 months straight, it was just 10 panic attacks a day, just feeling exhausted, that emotional roller coaster, the highs, the lows, the cortisol. It was like too much. And I could barely function in class. I mean, I couldn't even pay attention to the teacher, talking about the exam next week. It was awful. And so I really remember reaching a point where my normal thing to get out of a panic attack was asking my teacher, can I go to the bathroom? I would grab the hall pass and go rush off to the girls' bathroom. And I even remember at 27, what those bathroom stalls felt like. It was like the cold white tiles on the ground and the sound of the humming of the generator, that just weird smell it had, and just sitting in the stall. And I would wait for my panic attacks to pass. And I would just sit and stare at the white tiles on the ground and just like literally pray that it went away. And I was like, I don't know if I'm having a stroke or like what's going on, because there was no education about mental health in my school. So I really did not know what was happening. And so, I remember about 6 months into freshman year, I just was sitting in, that bathroom stall again. But this time I realized, I don't see a future for myself. And that was a very weird moment at 15 to not even see myself graduating high school, leaving my parents' house, or, starting a new life as an adult. I never saw any of that for myself. And that in that moment, I was just like, you know what? I have to change. I have to ask for help because I want to feel better, because I was barely getting by, hanging on by a thread, in a toxic relationship. My grades are slipping, just everything was really crumbling down. And so that is, also a powerful moment when I realized that there's a beautiful aspect in asking for help. It's a really powerful thing when you do, because I, had so many stories about, oh, I'm weak, I'll be viewed differently. My parents will send me off to some boarding school in Russia. I just will know it's going to be awful. But I remember one night after dinner, I asked my parents for help. And, I really told them what I was feeling. And they said, Megan, we love you. Let's start therapy next week. And it was a cool moment because I was so afraid of taking that leap of faith. But sometimes, we will be caught on the other side. And that's a good reminder that it's not always going to be a negative thing when you take that chance. Like sometimes the answer will be yes. Sometimes you will be, the people will hold the space for you. So that really sparked my journey, at 15 years old, started therapy. And that opened up the doorway to this fascination with understanding who I was, why I thought the way that I did, and also having a profound sense of I want to help the next generation.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so magnificent. I often take notes and will write things down while I'm interviewing and podcasting because things like pop out and I want to really listen, but not forget some of the like aha moments. And I love what you said, my story and your story in terms of kind of the awareness of needing support. Mine also started in college too. And I remember doing laundry and like needing to go downstairs in like the basement of where my apartment was when I first moved away to college, first things, whatever.
Yes.
And like having 75 cents instead of $1 for the quarters to put it in and just like losing it and just like having a lot of these memories of just like losing it, if you will. And so I remember, dabbling, asking for help, whatever. But one of the first resources that I found for myself or whatever was working out and was going for runs and doing things to help physically until I realized I was using that tool for everything. And I was working out too much for the wrong, like all the things, thinking it was going to fix, right? So what was your tool? So you had that moment in the bathroom, which I love because I've had so many bathroom moments. And whenever I post about that, people always respond. They're like, me, I'm in the bathroom, the place. Yeah. Where
the
things
shower,
just kind
the
of go down.
Just the thoughts. And you're like, you just start pondering like, why are we on this earth?
And having those moments of being like, okay, I need better tools, right? So my first tool was like, I would go for a run and like, take breaks from studying and not be, try to let go a little bit and not be so hard on myself. But then that became like an overused tool. I always say I was using a hammer to build everything. So I had to realize the variety of tools is really important. So when you're 15 and you're on this quest to find these tools that are going to help you manage what you just described and experienced, what did you grab first? You said therapy. Was that super helpful? What was the next one? Was there anything that you tried on where you're like, that doesn't work for me, but that works better? Because I think that's important in this space is like, you think one thing might supposed to be working or it did for someone else and you do that, but then I like the variety of tools. So what tools did you start to cultivate then that, that really worked for you?
Yes. So the tools that I began to cultivate, I think number one, what is most important, I'm a big therapy advocate. I always have been, but the real factor that has made me love therapy is finding therapists that you just click with. Like if you think of it, when you're dating, like whether you do, I don't know, Bumble, Hinge, in person, whatever. I mean, what's the number one thing that you're looking for on that date? Probably chemistry, right? You just click, you vibe, the energy is there. To me, that is what is important with any doctor or therapist. But I remember vividly when I was younger, my first therapist at 15, I felt like such a deep connection to her. I felt naturally just very safe. I felt very comfortable, and she really did a good job of holding the space for me and, really just giving me that perfect, unbiased opinion, because that's what we crave, right? With therapists, we don't want really our mom's opinion. It's our mother. She loves us. She has a certain view of us. So she's going to come from that motherly energy. But a therapist is just, they don't have that family or like close bond with you. So they're giving you a really helpful, healthy, like opinion, not even an opinion, just feedback. So
like outside perspective too,
yes,
like that
outside,
zoomed out. Mm-hmm.
Zoomed out. And that's what makes therapy amazing. So I will say, yes, I think something that helped me in the beginning that I loved is just finding a therapist that works for me. But yes, I mean, there were so many other, the family I grew up in were very like holistic Eastern medicine. So that's kind of what I grew up with. And I love my mom, but I remember there were many moments when I was 15 years old and she's like, we're going to cure this. I love you. You're my daughter. This is not going to ruin you. And I'm like, okay. And she took me to so many, kind of funky, just way too holistic appointments and with these herbologists and very like Chinese medicine. And I love her, but I'm like, this is just not for me. I just need a therapist, give me a treadmill. I'll exercise. That's all I need. I don't really need, all this fancy, like, I grew up in the Bay Area. So we would go into San Francisco and she would have me go see like a muscle testing doctor and all these things. And, oh, your right leg is longer than your left. And so that means your whole kidneys are I'm like, okay, everything is fine. But, yes.
So you explored a lot of modalities. So you had a lot of kind of, even if you decided like, okay, yeah, thanks for the guidance from your parents or mom or whatever to like show you different perspectives. But in the end, I like what you said. You're like therapy and a treadmill. Like my 2 T's is like what I need and I can just kind of be good. But it's nice, I think, to try on different tools and to test out things to see what happens. And you might like it. You also might not, but it's cool to, I think, have a moment, a taste of it, just to be able to decide for yourself if it's to, one way or another for you or kind of what suits you. And I totally second on what you said about therapy is like dating, where you like got to try it on and get to decide if that person vibes or feels good. Just because someone's a therapist doesn't mean they're your therapist. And I've had some great experiences. And I remember one in particular when I was living abroad in Austria. And I don't know if it was the language barrier, even though he spoke great English, but I just remember like going in with something really heavy that because of past experiences in therapy, I was like, okay, I'm ready to share this, right? It didn't take a lot of coaxing, even though it was a big thing. Yeah. But I remember leaving and being like, he didn't fucking get me. Like not in a rude way, but I was like, that just didn't sit right. So, and that was like, what I left, just a little bit emotional and just feeling a little bit incomplete. But I share that because maybe someone listening has felt that feeling. But, there's other options, just like, dating or whatever. It's like they might not be a good fit for you. There are
so many therapists
so
out
many
there,
other options. Yes.
I mean, the amount of therapists, also psychiatrists, there's hypnotherapists, there's, therapists that range in all different topics, whether it's childhood trauma, anxiety, depression, relationships, family counsel. Like the amount of therapists that are out there is endless, and just never ever settle, because I've also had an experience where when I was living in Miami last year, I, remember trying on a few different therapists, and one gentleman in particular was just not a good fit. I found him to be very gossipy, and anything I said, I felt like he was like egging me on. He's like, "Oh, tell me more, Megan." I'm like, "What is happening?" Like, yeah, he just was like, "Oh, and how does that make you feel?" And I'm like, I literally feel like I'm on a reality show. Like, this is not how you should be feel in a therapy session.
It's like Entertainment with Megan Gallagher. Getting all the juice, all the gossip.
Seriously, I was like, this guy is wild. Like, this is not what I, am craving. So it's just good though to listen to your intuition. And I think you just will know, like we said, in dating, when it's a match and when it's not. Same with therapists. It's just that easy.
Yeah, totally. You just feel it. You just know. Let's talk about kids in school, about what you feel like is the next best step, right? I don't remember when I was in school, outside of potentially good coaches and teachers who like could help me find, plant a seed or find a bigger meaning or a better way of regulating my nervous system and my life, right? Whether it's a coach or a teacher, but there was no specific class, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, I remember even like some classes, even on, and this is a different topic, but even on just like health and wellness and human sexuality, whatever, they were always like electives, right? It's like if you wanted to, it was never something. And now as an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I think it's wonderful that I have, certain skills I learned in school, or I can do like math in my brain in the same way that I can on my iPhone. But like, I really would have loved to know other techniques that, so what have you been doing so far? What's your vision? What do you feel like's missing in that space? Like, what's going on there?
So I would say, I really, really think, just from my own experience, just being that teenage girl that felt so awkward and never good enough, I feel like when I do speak at schools, I am always just so like picturing my younger self in the audience. And I do think with kids today, there is, so much pressure with social media and so many, that just adds an extra layer of insecurity, low self-esteem, comparing yourself, not feeling good enough. And I just feel like the way, I love TikTok, I love all those apps, but the way that they're headed is like, it is very, very, it creates just this toxic persona. I'm grateful that I grew up, Facebook came out when I was like a freshman in high school. So I feel grateful that I kind of missed the crazy, rush of TikTok and all these a ton of apps, because I don't know what I would have done. Like I already struggled with body image issues and low self-esteem, but seeing all these young girls that have had, so much work done and there's so many filters and so much, it's awful. And so I think, for kids today, like I would just say to really love yourself and to set a firm boundary with social media. Because I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger the way that the world is headed. But I do think it's up to us to separate ourselves from our phones, from our laptops, and to create that healthy, like I am not my iPhone. I can put it down and I can still feel great about myself. But I feel like if I were to say anything to my younger self, I just would say it's all happening for a reason. And right now you may not understand that reason, but I promise as you get older, everything will unfold itself and you will know why you are going through what you are going through. Like that, I think is a strong message to any kid or teenager out there listening, whether you're going through anxiety, depression, or family stuff at home and you just feel alone. Just know that, if you believe in it, like it is serving a bigger purpose. To me, having that faith is kind of what kept me going for a while, just believing I trust that this is making me stronger. I'm going to view it, like take away, the positives from it and think, how is this, helping me turn into the woman that I'm becoming? Like it's making me, stronger, love myself more, have more patience, be able to forgive others easily. Whatever it is, it's powerful when you can flip a challenging situation into something positive.
Yes. And being able to offer those tools in school to students to show them how they can flip the script or reframe. And I don't know, as you were talking, I just kind of envisioned moments where like I would go to the principal's office or be put outside because while being a good student, I just didn't stop talking, which is why I'm so grateful for podcasting. But they would like put me outside, right? Like just get out because you're just like disturbing. I wish whoever the school, mental health nervous system resources operator was at the, we didn't have that, but coming up and being like, hey, London, like, cool, you're done with your work. Okay, let's do some breath work or let's work on some journaling or let's tap into something that will help you feel more empowered rather than just like get outside, you're talking too much. Because that kind of story and that voice held me back as I got older. And I, thanks to a lot of resources and tools, I was able to kind of uncover that there. So do you have a vision like where we go to first period mindfulness and then we go like, what do you like?
I mean, I don't know. I know what school looked like for me. I think everybody listening can think about what kind of school looked like for them. Like, I don't know, let's paint a promising picture for a second. Like, what do you think is possible? Because, for example, like my niece, she's 4, and I'll do breath work in front of her. And I'll just be like, hey, Angie's going to do breath work over here. You can join me if you want, but you don't have to. Yeah. So sometimes she doesn't even hear me. She's in La La Land with her toys and her hamster. Sometimes she sits right next to me and we do heart, affirmation breaths together, and it's beautiful.
Oh,
so
like, that.
I hope one day she gets to go to first period meditation, right? But like, what are we working towards? You also have kind of your eyes, I would say, behind the curtain a little bit of maybe what transformation is already happening, what schools are already doing. So like, what's possible, and what can we get excited about potentially?
So that is a great question. I would say my mission in life is to have a school schedule, a class schedule where kids show up, first period is really starting off the day on a positive note. Because like I said, teenagers are already dealing with so much, whether it's puberty, their hormones, body changes, experiencing a romantic relationship for the first. It's a lot of firsts. It's a lot of you're coming into your own, you're learning about yourself. Also, we don't know what people are dealing with at home. Their family life could be really toxic, and school is their escape, and they feel safe and they don't really want to go home. So I would love to dedicate first period to starting off the day on a great note where everyone, gets to meditate and do a guided meditation where there's a teacher, just speaking and just helping them really get into a calm place where they can focus on their breath. And they can feel very centered, and they can focus on how they want the whole entire day to go. So to me, that's a practice I've been doing for years where, I always start my day and then I focus on how I want to feel throughout the day. I want to feel expanded, joyful, and how I visualize myself accomplishing all my tasks and errands while feeling joyful and fulfilled and happy. And it's a powerful practice because you're not only manifesting, but you're also, really guiding your brain for, the blueprint of today. Okay, it's going to be joyful and happy. So I'm going to focus on that. So I would start off first period as a guided meditation, and then some journaling, some light breath work. And then they start the day and having, the typical classes where it's math, history, science, all that good stuff. But I just think in order to have a productive day, I do think that it is so healthy to have breaks where you meditate and you check in with yourself. So I would want a school schedule where there are, gaps of time, an hour in between each 3 classes where they get to really chill and just decompress and check in with themselves. And whether that is having a healthy meal or going on a walk in nature, I want those things to be options. And also, I would love a class on listening to your intuition. I think that is so important because throughout my whole entire life, I've always had a strong intuition. Even when I didn't know it, I would get these I call them pits in my stomach, these feelings of like you're dropping on an elevator and I'm like, that doesn't feel good. Whether it was because I was around somebody or dating someone or just about to embark on, a trip, a journey, and I felt either really good about it, expanded, or contracted really bad about it. And so I remember being so young, being like, what is this feeling? But now at 27, I acknowledge my intuition and I also listen to it. That's a huge part of it, right? We all have one. We all can tap into it whenever we want. But I actually, I take action based off of my intuition when it comes to basically every area of my life. I think that the most successful people are the ones that really do listen to their intuition for business advice, for love advice, because I realize, our intuition is like a direct connection to source, to our higher self, to like this, just force out there that we can't see with our physical eye. And to me, my intuition is always spot on. Like whether it's feeling someone's energy and you're like, I don't think this is going to be a match. My intuition is always so accurate. And one thing I will add is, growing up, I often like rebelled and I'm like, I'm not listening to my intuition. I want to date this guy and then have my heart broken. I'm like, should have listened. But now, I actually realize that my intuition wants to help me, not hurt me. Like it's actually trying to make my life easier and more lovely. It's just my ego.
Is that how you distinguish between what the voice is? Because that's what I wanted to ask, is how do you know that it's the voice of your intuition? Because I do a lot of work with my clients on this of like, whose voice is that? What exactly are they saying? You know? And so I love that, because you're like, no, that's not my intuition. If it's not guiding me towards what is of my highest good or empowering or whatnot, then I know that that's not the voice. Is that how you distinguish it? Like, do you have kind of that?
Yes.
I'm sure it comes autopilot now because you just recognize it. It's like hearing your mom, whatever's voice, someone, your partner, someone close to you. Yes. But in the beginning, I think that, well, I know that because with a lot of the work I've done, and then with my clients too, there's a lot of chatter, right? And we don't know, we don't even slow down enough to know like what it's saying, where it came from, whose voice it, you know, and we don't even like, it's just chatter and it's kind of loud. And I think that journey and that process, which from what you're painting would be already started well before you and I even got those tools, but would really be able to, like you said, like tuning into your intuition. What are these voices? Which one is actually your intuition? Which is the one that is just trying to sabotage you, but actually was just trying to keep you safe at some point, right? So what was that process of you being like, oh, that's my voice of my intuition? Was it trial and error? Was it like over time? Or how did you know, like, that's me? That's my intuition.
Hey, really quick, I want to interrupt the podcast for just a minute to tell you about one of my favorite supplements for hair, skin, nails, digestive, and gut health. And that is Snap Supplements Super Greens with collagen. Now, if you're following me on social media, you've probably seen me post about this a bunch because honestly, this product tastes amazing and it's jam-packed with nutrients, like I said, to support healthy hair, skin, and nails. It helps support detoxification, a healthy immune system, and there's even probiotics in there for a healthy gut. It's non-GMO, no sugar added, soy-free, grass-fed collagen, and every scoop is going to give you 7 grams of protein. And this is why I love it, because it's not like a protein shake. It's just a scoop of powder. It tastes amazing. I put it in water, or if I want more hydration, I'll put it in coconut water and mix it up. And it's like having a nice, refreshing beverage that's packed with a bunch of super greens and protein. So what I'm super excited about is that for listening to the podcast, you'll get this discount here, nowhere else, but for listening to the podcast. You can save 25% off on all your Snap supplement purchases, including the Super Greens with collagen. And you do that by using code LONDON25 at checkout. That's LUNDEN 25. LUNDEN 25 to get 25% off at checkout. You can shop on snapsupplements.com, or you can shop on my website, lifelikelondon.com/supplements. And you'll see there's already an additional 10% taken off. But you, because you're a podcast listener, you're going to get 25% off when you use the code LONDON25 at checkout. LUNDEN 25 at checkout to get your Snap Supplements, Super Greens, and collagen, and all your Snap supplements for 25% off. Now, let's get back to the show.
So I would say, if I think about it, the first moment I can remember when my intuition popped up, I would say, in high school, I think, there was a party I was about to go to. I got invited, and it was like a big party with a lot of seniors. And, when you're a freshman, that's a big deal to go to a party with seniors. So I was like, oh, I have to go. I have to look cute. But I remember as I was getting ready and looking in my mirror and like doing my hair, I just felt this constant pulling down, like energetically in my lower stomach. I felt just constantly like, I can't get excited for this. Like, what's going on? I was like, come on, Megan, like what, shake it off. What's happening? Like, I was looking at myself like, did I eat something weird? Why is my stomach hurting? But I literally, as the time got closer to the party, I still just felt this, like, just this ball of like, just a fat no. And I was like, I don't even know what's happening. And so I decided, I was like kind of freaking myself out, and I decided to stay home. And then the next day, my friends that were at that party said there was actually a guy with a knife that literally somehow, older guy, kind of a crazy, just, I don't know if it's who, but some guy there was a huge, house party. And then some guy brought a knife and tried hurting people and showed up and everyone freaked out and ran. So it's wild though, because my intuition had this like foreshadowing right before the event happening, like a premonition. And that's, one moment that I will never forget where I'm like, okay, so my intuition is actually really trying to help me. And then later in life, dating certain guys, I would always get, even on the first date, like I also will say this. I do think that the more you can strengthen your intuition and strengthen that voice, because like I said, we all have one, it's all there. But it's just a matter of being consistent with, going out into nature and doing breath work and really practicing those mindful tools. You will start you will start hearing your intuition more and more and more. The more still that you get, the more you just have that connection with your body. And as someone, for me, I've always been very active. Like I was a dancer growing up, so I was always in tune with my body and my breath. And I think that helped. I also grew up in a household where my mom encouraged me to meditate all the time. They showed us the movie The Secret. So I think for me, I had a great childhood that really allowed me to like flourish and to develop my intuition at a young age. But now, I will say like what you said is the best example where now that voice, that intuition, I know when it happens and I know that feeling right away. And to me, I know when it's a no and I know when it's a yes. And I'm like, it sounds just like my mom's voice. I'm just like, that guy's, I first date, I felt a fat no, energetically, intuitively. I'm like, this guy is just it's not going to be good. And I've really, really learned to realize that, we have an intuition and we also have an ego. I think that as humans, I believe in reincarnation and spiritual things, but I think as humans, we're put on this earth in this lifetime. And, we all come from, I think, a place of unconditional love, but we're all, given a soul and an ego, that yin and that yang. And without one or the either, we wouldn't accomplish much because the ego helps us, drive, motivate, accomplish stuff. If we didn't have an ego, we all would be like sitting in a field of flowers, just staring up at the sky all day long. And we have a soul because that's where we come from. It's, we're never going to lose sight of our home and our heart and what feels right. And I do believe that we all have a divine purpose on this earth. And I do feel that, life is really about the moment we're born. It's like undoing the doing. We're born, we're brought up in the household, we're raised a certain religion, community. This is what love is to us, et cetera, et cetera. We put on these like onion layers and then we reach 25 maybe. And we're like, did my childhood really serve me? We start questioning and why am I dating the same guy over and over again and all these patterns and things. And then we start undoing the doing, we start peeling away. And I believe that we are returning to our true selves, which is who we're destined to be in this lifetime. And we're, letting go of the pain and the hardships and the, stuff that disheartened us and trauma from our childhood. And then we're becoming enlightened, we're coming back to a place of joy, of like our true selves.
Yeah. And I love the idea of being able to introduce that much earlier and much sooner.
Yes.
And so for parents listening, that are thinking, okay, I have young kids, they're going to school and learning XYZ where, not yet is the meditation first period or kind of that morning routine. I love what you painted. It was kind of like almost like a morning routine when you get to school. It reminds me a lot of kind of how I start my day there. But what would be, like I mentioned, I'll just give a tip here to parents. Like I just sit next to my niece and do my breath work and, we'll do, especially heart opening. I'll do that in front of her a lot and smile and breathe into my heart space. And I'll say things I'm thankful for and do positive affirmations. Like I literally just model it because I'm going to do it anyways. And I want her to like see it. But what are other tools that, because maybe a parent listening too is like, I don't do any of those things. Like I don't meditate, I don't journal, So what would be like a good way? I think it could be such a beautiful way for parents, caregivers with their children to kind of try out some of these new things in the home. But I do know that for some people listening, they might be like, that's weird, air quotes,
Yes.
or woo woo, or
Yes.
I'm uncomfortable with it, so I'm not going to do it with my kids. How can we inspire parents listening? Like, hey, just do a little breath work, do a little something, something with your kids to introduce that sooner rather than later. What would you suggest?
Yes. I would say the best tip for parents listening, number one, I would say never be afraid to have that conversation with your child, because I think for some households and families, mental health can be awkward. It's like something we don't talk about. It's weird. But just remove all of that, because the sooner you let go of all those stories and beliefs, the quicker that you're able to develop a deep connection with your child. I remember being a teenager, and all I really, really wanted, and I feel like what every child really, really wants, is just to be heard and seen and understood. Like, they want to be treated like a real adult that has feelings, that has, a schedule, that is doing something productive. Like, I always just craved, my parents, and they did this, which was wonderful, but I always craved my parents sitting with me and speaking to me as if I were, 20 years old, like really speaking to me, looking me in my eyes, and not just being like, oh, Megan, you're so this. So I would say first tip is just really, let go of any negative beliefs about mental health and don't think it's so scary or awkward. My second tip would be to really, really, really just have that conversation however you can. Maybe, that's asking your child like, oh, let's go, get ice cream, or let's go on a walk, let's go like after dinner, whatever it is. You have family game night, you have, no phones at the dinner table, and you get to chat about your life and what's going on. I think it's just important as the parent to be the one that you don't have to be the one, but I think it's important to be the one that's, the role model. Like, your kids look up to you a lot and they watch what you do. So it's important, to be like, hey, Johnny, hey, Ashley, how was your day? What were the highs and the lows? Tell me, like, how are you really feeling? Like, get deeper. Don't just be surfacey. Ask them, what in your life are you craving? Are you happy in your friendships? Like, where do you think you could do better? Because the more that you ask these thought-provoking questions, you're actually allowing your child to start really taking self-inquiry and to really think about their life, which is healthy. Doing that from an early age is a game changer.
Yeah, I love that. The highs, lows.
Yes.
I do that with like adults in my teams, if you will. We do rose thorn. If I have a retreat or we do a team building something, I'm like, okay, what was the rose? What was the thorn? I got that from a mentor of mine that I love. And I think that's a great way and an easy way, I think, for a parent listening who has never done a lot of this work before, wants to bring this into their family, is nervous, doesn't have the vocabulary, wasn't taught all the words that maybe we potentially have now. Yes. I think you could come to the dinner table. I'm talking to you, whoever's listening, and this resonates, and you could just be like, hey, what was your high and low of today?
Yeah.
I bought my mom a book for Christmas. It's called Best, Worst, Grateful. And it's like every day you write down the best thing, the worst thing, and what you're grateful for. So I think that's good to bring to the table too, or to the, and I also think, my niece is 4. She talks pretty well. I think that's something that you could introduce very early. And, a high could be like, oh, I ate ice cream today. And my low could be like, I don't know, I didn't get the toy I wanted at Target today. Like the development of what might be highs and lows will vary, of course, as you grow and as the child develops and whatever. Yes. Another thing I love, I don't know if you've heard of it before, is the feelings wheel. Have you heard of the feelings wheel before?
I have. Is that where they break down each feeling?
Yeah, it's like a colorful wheel, and it has just a lot of different words for feelings. And I love it because I feel like, I don't know I don't remember specifically the words that my parents used for feelings, but I don't remember them being very decorative and delicious and like the possibility through these words, right? It was kind of like mad, sad, bad, glad, or whatever, like very just basic. Yes. And I love the feelings wheel because it gives you a lot of words that describe feelings. And so with my niece, I'll be like, hey, what's an excited face look like? And we'll do like excited face. Where do you feel it? Cute. Oh, I feel it right here, So I love being like, oh, do you know what angry feels like, yeah, where do you feel that? Oh, I feel it. So allowing them to recognize the presence of feelings, I think, is helpful, and giving them more words. Cause, kids are sponges, right? I love the videos on Instagram where like the mom accidentally says like fuck or shit in front of their kids and then they repeat it. I think that's hysterical. Like I have no kids. I don't know if I even want them, but I think those videos, I could laugh for hours on like the funny things that the kids repeat, right? Gosh. So it goes to show like if you spend some time just being like, hey, what helped you? What helped you feel, what was a time you felt frustrated today? Or what was when you felt very enlightened or happy or excited or whatever, and give more words. And so I like the feelings wheel. In fact, I think I'll put it in the show notes. It's like feelingswheel.com. And it's beautiful because it's just like a picture. And, I think kids can look at it too. And when they start reading, they can kind of, move it around and look at that feelings wheel. I think, you have great, you're great at speaking. You're a public speaker. I know that sometimes I take that for granted too, where I'm like, oh yeah, like the thesaurus is my best friend. Like I love finding new words. But I think sometimes people are like, feelings, emotions, I don't know what I'm really feeling or what I should say. So I like that resource too, because I love what you said about, hey, create the time pocket as a parent or caregiver or aunt or whatever, create that time pocket to ask the question, to have an activity that's just kind of outside of, connected to your phone or all those things. And I think that would be, a great start. And I remember as a kid, we didn't have, when I was a kid, cell phones didn't exist. So there wasn't a matter of having that at the table or not. But I love the idea of like a disconnected dinner and table. We never had the TV on during meals. In fact, the TV wasn't really on a ton unless you were like watching something. But I do know that sometimes TV can just be like background forever and for always in some families, and we can just be like sidetracked. And so I think the takeaway for parents at least is like press mute, turn off the phones, and just, hey, what was your high and low for today? What was good, bad, grateful, right? It could be that simple. Don't you think?
Yes. And it's so important too, because you're not only showing your child that it's good to talk about feelings, but you're also, just allowing them to express themselves. And in a family, that's really, really important, is to feel like, you are included and that your voice does matter. And it's just something like when I look back on my childhood, I feel so grateful because I had parents that were all about saying how you feel. And they always told me, Megan, never be afraid to tell people how you feel. Always set boundaries. No one can read your mind. So I feel like that, really, really just shaped me into who I am today, where it's like, sometimes like when I was younger, I used to be a huge people pleaser. I was so afraid of rocking the boat, of making people upset. That was like my confrontation was like my biggest fear. But now I view it differently. To me, it's not really confrontation. It's actually me just, saying how I feel so I can physically and mentally feel better and I can feel a weight off my shoulders. So I feel like it's just extremely healthy. And I love the feelings wheel. I think I've seen it in a few doctors' offices where it's, like you feel one emotion, right? Like anger, sadness, happy, joyful, but then they break it down into more. It's like go deeper. And that's one thing that I remember one of my therapists always would say. I would say, I'm feeling this way today. And she would say, but Megan, why? She would ask why until I got to the root of the issue. And sometimes that's just what we need as humans. We need someone to either keep on asking us why to get to peel away those layers, or we need we just need something like the feelings wheel where you can go deeper and actually realize, wait, I'm not just sad, but I'm actually, grieving. Like when you can pinpoint the actual emotion that you are feeling, it's a powerful thing, because then you can like, oh, wait, I'm actually grieving, the loss of this person, or I moved to a new city, whatever it is. So boom, you're not actually sad. It's something, it's a different emotion. So I love stuff like that. And I do think, in high school, for me being a female, I think I always have been an open book and someone that loves expressing myself and talking about my feelings. But I, feel like for men, even though we live in 2023 and I do think times are changing, I do feel like for men, it can be a little bit different, where I think, because I've given hundreds of talks over the last 9 years at middle schools, high schools, YMCAs, PTA meetings, you name it, colleges, Fortune 500 companies. And I feel like I have noticed over the last 9 years that men typically don't ask many questions, and they typically are more just like watching me speak, and they're just like observing, and they're like, and I love it. I mean, it's awesome. But, I've had many instances where, men will DM me on Instagram after my talk, and they'll say, "Hey, Megan, I wanted to say I loved your talk, and what you said really resonated with me."
Yes.
And I just think it's just something I'm taking note of. But I do think that sometimes men feel they associate saying how they feel with not being a man, because I think some guys are raised, like I said, I know times are different, but I do think that like in typical just how girls and boys can be raised, it's like, I think guys are sometimes raised like, be the man, be macho, provide for your family, you show up, you work hard, you hustle, and then that's it. And like, I've had many instances where I date guys who are kind of like workaholics, and they're just, these like macho trying to prove it to their dad that they're the man, and they're going to like all this like toxic masculinity. And I'm like, this is so fascinating. And then, we're hanging out, and they start venting to me, and they're, just like, I hate my job. I'm unhappy. I'm burnt out at 29. I have no work-life balance, and I'm on the verge of a breakdown. And I'm like, well, I'm not your therapist, but maybe you should go, it's wild to me, because I think regardless if you're a guy, girl, it does not matter. Like, you're still a soul, you're still a human, and you need love, and you need balance, and you have a capacity and a bandwidth, and you have to respect that.
Yes. Yeah. I love that you touched on kind of that masculine, feminine, societal norm that I think has very much hindered the capacity of men, like to make, I feel like it's supposed to be like stronger, better, but I think it really kind of puts a lid on it. And I've done a couple episodes, and I'm going to continue to do more with men talking about this particular topic of being open with feelings and emotions and vulnerability. And I did I did a really good episode with the Fit Mess guys. I can't remember exactly what episode number it is, but I'll link it down below. And I got a lot of feedback from my male friends, both hetero and homosexual, saying like, hey, that really was awesome. Like that, I love that. Can you do more of that? Because I think men need to have the tools to talk about their feelings and communicate and connect in a way that has been kind of, let's say, more recently mainstream for women to like take care of themselves, nurture internally and be able to express. And so I love that, because I've had some awesome guy guests recently, and I'm just excited to bring more men into this space. And not that that's always the topic we talk about, but I just think it's interesting to see, okay, like, how did you start to believe in possibility in a new way that wasn't maybe ingrained in our society? So I think that's just so important and powerful to think about, because I remember even as a woman who I would say in my family was pretty encouraged to share my feelings, didn't have a lot of words for my feelings. My parents obviously did their best, but I remember thinking when I first started gathering my tools and doing a lot of this stuff in college and to my early 20s, late 20s, early 30s, I remember thinking like, oh, I feel like I'm going to be overwhelmed by more words for my feelings. And so I kind of avoided that. But then when I started, looking at the feelings wheel and exploring more vocabulary that could describe how I was feeling, it was so empowering, and I felt so much better. I thought I was going to be like more of a basket case by unleashing all the emotions, but I'm like, no, actually I feel so much more in line. Like I know myself better because of that. So I just feel like, for anyone listening that might be like, oh, more words for how all this mess of how I might be feeling. One of my coaches one time told me, it's a masterpiece, London. It's not a mess. So as we're kind of like creating this masterpiece, that really resonates. Go for it. Did you want to have anything to add there?
Yeah, I just think that's beautiful. And I really do feel, I have a gentleman, a friend of mine who is a guy, and we've been friends for years, and he's in the life coaching space himself. And I think like he's so incredible. Like he leads these groups of young college guys, to transform their lives. And cause he went through a phase where, if I remember the story correctly, he was kind of, just in that dark place at like 22, drinking a lot, just, sleeping with a lot of women, kind of just like in that place of just anger and frustration and just, unhealthy. And he had a wake up call where he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so now he's like dedicating his life to having the conversations with young men, and he leads these support groups, and it's really, really powerful. Like he, helps these young men at 21, 22, 23 transform their lives and have that conversation where it's like, you don't have to do all these things to try to be the man or to try to be cool or to feel like your only source of escape is through, like alcohol or sex or like whatever it is. It's like you deserve to feel like you have the same resources that women do. Like, you can go to therapy, you can have support groups. So I just think it's so cool though. Like, times really are changing. And like the fact that there are support groups for young men where they can get together and do breath work and heal and transform their lives and like talk about toxic masculinity, it makes me really happy because I know that a lot of men, just like women, anyone can really, really suffer with mental health stuff. And I think when you feel like you can't share it because you're scared of how people will view you, then it makes it even harder. So I just love the world that we live in because so many things are turning in such a positive, like they're taking away all of the scariness of it and they're making it very accessible and affordable for everyone, which I love.
Totally. I love that. We both started kind of our conversation and also our journey in college. And we noticed in college this moment of like, okay, I need more tools, right? And here you are trying to bring the tools sooner rather than later, which is so beautiful. But we talked about, maybe some advice for parents or input for parents. What about for those people who are us, right? That we're in college and just having this awareness of like, this is overwhelming. There's a lot happening and I don't even know what to do first. What would you suggest some advice for college students listening that want to go on this journey of discovering more for their health, mental health?
So I would say for any college student listening, first of all, just know that however you are feeling, I don't care how weird it feels, just know that it is perfectly normal. Like that's one thing I wish I knew growing up, because anxiety can make you feel 5,000 things. Like your pinky toe can go numb. You can get a headache. You can feel so many emotions and so many different things. I wish I knew that it was all normal and it was okay, because to me that would validate like, like I can breathe, like what I'm, going through, it's okay. And I'm not a weirdo and I don't have a disease and I'm not, like a freak of nature. So I feel like number one thing, whatever emotion, feeling in your body and your brain you are feeling, it is okay and it is normal. I would say my second best tip is to start having a daily routine or like a schedule where maybe I'm a written person, so I love planners and being organized. But every single day, whether it's morning, lunchtime, or evening, or all three, have little things that you can do to form these like rituals. Every morning I do, I make my bed, I do a cold shower, I drink warm water with lemon. To me, those things are like what bring me sanity. When my life gets crazy, it doesn't matter if I'm traveling in a hotel room, I will always have those routines. Like to me, it's a way of saying I love you and it fills up my cup. And routines are so important for mental health, whether it's exercise, breath work, getting outside, sunshine, all that stuff. It is so key. And so I think that is a huge tip. And also my third tip would be, when you are in college, it's a huge, huge, huge time in your life, right? You're on your own for the first time. You're learning about money, budgeting, living with someone, trying to balance partying and social life in school. And it's a lot of like overwhelm and just stimuli. be kind to yourself and learn how to say no from an early age. That's one thing I wish I knew. I didn't go to college, but if I had, even being in my 20s in LA, I mean, I still had many moments, where I wish I learned to say no and to be really comfortable doing that, because, I was just burning myself out trying to do 4 million things at once. And that's never a good path to be on. But I do think in college, when you learn how to say no, like you don't have to go to every party. You don't have to be in Greek life if you do not want to. All of these things, you just learn the power of like, wow, every time I say no to something and I say yes to myself and like practicing self-care or doing an activity that feels really good to me, each time you do that, it's like you're allowing just your soul to like be set free. Like it feels so good to just do things that make you feel good and are in alignment. So just because you're 21 years old, it does not mean that you have to get wasted, every night just because that's what you do. You don't have to do those things, and just know that you have more of a choice than you probably think you do.
Yes, I love that. Love that. Really reining in on the choices and deciding instead of just like, here I am, and I think it's just kind of that age group, where it's like, whether you're, let's say, in college or whatever, it's just kind of like that new adult trying to pretend like I got it all together, but I really don't know shit, which I think is pretty much our whole life anyways. But
it's our whole life and never,
but I really it's and the habits and routines, I often call them like bookends. Like I do the morning routine and the evening routine, like just to help you. I forget what book it was. I think it might be Atomic Habits or something like that, where they say like,
good one.
you fall, what's the, I'm going to butcher the quote right here, but I got the underlying message, which is like, you only, when you fall to your most sturdy habits, if you will, or you fall back to your default habits. So I think having those habits and routines is helpful, because we're going to fall. There's going to be things that, we have hiccups in our lives, but we always go back to our like most solid routines and habits. And so I love that you shared, there's just like, your morning thing, wake up, your warm water, like there's certain stuff that just like feels good to feel good.
Of course.
So grateful that we got to have our conversation today. This is so wonderful. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for what you're doing. I feel like, I know I'm not that much older than you, but I'm 34, and I just feel like the resources that I started accumulating were about at your age. And so to see where you're at and knowing that you're going out and giving the message that you are is so beautiful. I think as a fellow woman, human, just advocate for mental health and for doing, some of these things sooner, I say thank you, because you're so wonderful.
Thank you.
Let us know where we can, totally. Let us know where we can connect with you, social media. Maybe there's some speeches that you gave on YouTube or something. Like tell us where we can find more from you.
Yes. So I am everywhere. I always say that I'm on every platform. So my handle for Instagram is at Megan, Megan Gallagher. My last name is long. It's just like the show in Shameless. It's super Irish. So at Megan W. Gallagher is Instagram. It's also Twitter. And then I have a Facebook page. I have a public page. It's Megan Gallagher. And I have like the same profile photos for each. So it's pretty easy to find me. I also have LinkedIn, and then my YouTube channel is just my name. Like if you type in Megan Gallagher, TED Talk, or anxiety or mental health, I will pop up. It should be pretty easy to find me. And I also have my website, which is www.meganwgallagher.com. There you can find my contact info if you work at a school or if you are interested in having me speak at your Fortune 500 company. I do corporate, I do colleges. I have my agent's contact info on my website. I also have my blog and I have my books. I have a lot of info about me, and I just, my TEDx talks, both of them are on YouTube if you want to watch, where I kind of share more about my journey of growing up and when, anxiety really became prevalent in my life. But that's where to find me.
Yay. Megan Gallagher is everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here, for your time. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Hey, do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, give us a review. This really helps a lot. And share this with a friend. I'm only one person, and with your help, we can really spread the message of self-love and sweat and change more lives all around the world. I'm London Souza, reminding you that you deserve a life full of passion, presence, and purpose, fueled by self-love and sweat. This podcast is a Hit Spot Austria production.